Chapter 9. Encountering an Old Acquaintance at a Tavern. The poem reads: A beggar, playing the flute, his frame gaunt, yet his heroic spirit remained undiminished. His wife didn't recognize him, but his friend did. Their appearances seemed different, yet they were not. Like Fan Shu in his silk robe at Hanggu Pass, or Sima Xiangru drunk on wine at Linqiang. A man's friendship is as firm as gold and stone. Would poverty cause him to distance himself? Friendship isn't based on wealth. If one relies on wealth to attract those scheming, despicable people, when rich they'll act like a demolition axe, when poor they'll act like a fleeting cloud. Ultimately, reputation can move even distant acquaintances, and discerning eyes can forge brothers in poverty. Why did Shang Xingxin slip away the silver? It was simply because the mention of Kizhu stirred a thought in him, and he said to Xu Bao, "Brother, please sit down." He ordered a servant to bring tea. The old man carrying firewood, seeing that he was to sit and speak, leaned against the window and listened blankly. Xingxin said, "Brother, may I ask if you recognize my friend in Jinan?" Xu Bao asked, "Who is he?" Xingxin said, "This brother's surname is Qin, but I don't want to address him by his given name. His courtesy name is Xubao, and he is famous throughout the 6 prefectures of Shandong, known as the surpassing Zhuanzhu, and he works in Jinan Prefecture." Because Xubao was dressed in rags and looked very ugly, he didn't dare to say, "It's me," but casually replied, "He's a friend of mine from the Yamen." Xingxin said, "I'm sorry, so you're Xubao's colleague. May I ask your surname, brother?" Xubao said, "My surname is Wang." Because he was only thinking about repaying Wang Zioer's meal money, he casually said Wang. Xingxin said, "Brother Wang, please have a short meal. I also need to trouble you to send a letter to Brother Qin." Xubao replied, "I cannot accept the meal. Please send the letter quickly." Xingxin went back into his study to prepare 3 taels of silver as a travel allowance and 2 bolts of silk. He then returned to the hall and bowed respectfully, saying, "I need to write a letter for you to send to Brother Qin. However, we have never met, so I fear it would be inconvenient to address you. Please convey my wishes. I will visit you another day." This is 30 taels of silver for the horse, all pure silver. The 3 taels of travel allowance are not included in the horse's price. I also have 2 bolts of silk from my own horse to give you, as a token of my kinship. Please do not find it meager. Seeing such hospitality, Xubao, not wanting to linger for a meal and fearing his tone might reveal his true intentions, felt embarrassed and took his leave. A fine horse lies in its stall when its time is short, a hero in his time of misfortune. Though we yearn for each other, we cannot truly know one another even face to face. Xingxin, having exhausted his friendship, didn't linger, seeing him off at the gate and waving goodbye. Xubao headed straight for the west gate. The old farmer was still dozing outside the window, a long strand of drool hanging down. Just then Master Shan entered the gate and said to the old man, "Are you still here?" The old man replied, "I listened to Master Shan's conversation for so long that I dozed off. Has that horse seller gone?" Xingxin said, "He just left." He then went inside. The old farmer hurriedly grabbed his carrying pole and caught up with Xubao. Hearing that the man's surname was Wang, he called out, "Master Wang, please give me the broker's fee." Xubao was a generous man, so he broke down the 3 taels of silver he had given him, took out 1 ingot, and that was enough. The old man was overjoyed, bowed in thanks, and went to the tofu shop to get firewood. To be continued. Meanwhile, when Xubao entered through the west gate, it was already morning. The horse market had closed, and everyone had opened their shops. At the entrance of the newly opened taverns, piles of smoked food filled the air with a fragrant aroma. Xubao, however, was a man accustomed to such fare. These days, his mouth was dry and his taste buds were bland. He hadn't eaten at Xingxin Manor and was hungry. He thought to himself, "If I go to the waiter's house now, I'll have to eat his filthy food again. I'd better stay here until noon, pay my bill, collect my luggage, and then leave." He went straight into the shop. The waiters, seeing Xiubao carrying 2 bolts of silk rolled up and tucked under his clothes, recognized him as a fisherman's drummer and ballad singer. They blocked the door, saying, "A newly opened tavern, don't be so rude, barging in like this." Xiubao spread his hands, and 4 or 5 men fell to the ground. "I'm buying wine, why are you stopping me?" The world is fickle. People's faces change with their status. One of the men jumped up and said, "You buy wine and pay at the counter. Why are you wandering around like this?" Xiubao replied, "Why do I have to pay first?" The innkeeper said, "If you want to drink first and then pay, go to your preferred place. There's an old rule in Lezhu. Newly opened taverns might have trouble settling accounts after drinking, so you have to pay first, then drink." Xiubao thought to himself, "The strong don't cheat the market." He went to the counter, put down his silk, took out silver from his sleeve, bundled the jumbled bills together with the horse price, and then went to pay for the wine, muttering, "I'll pay you first, but when another customer comes, I'll ask them about the rules. If it's true, then I won't mention it again. Please put away your money." The innkeeper, however, was sensible and said with a smile, "Friend, please put away your money. We all share the same written language and moral principles. There's no reason to weigh money before drinking. My servants are ungrateful. They think you're a guest from elsewhere, with a different personality, and difficult to settle accounts after drinking. They deliberately made trouble by insisting on weighing the money first. They don't realize that we're in business to welcome gentlemen from all directions, and our guest is not an unkempt person. Please forgive their rudeness, but for my sake, don't take it too seriously. Please put away your money and come inside. I'll have them warm some wine for you." Seeing his tactful words, Xiubao turned his anger into joy and said, "The innkeeper is wise, there's no need to mention it again." He pocketed the money, took the silk, and went through the second door. The 3 main halls were very neatly arranged. The halls were furnished with long tables and chairs, and the walls were adorned with paintings and poems praising the tavern's merits. A drop of pearl leaks from the trough, revealing a harmonious universe. Amber floats in the cup, melting into the heart, conveying a myriad of emotions. Xiubao looked at the scene in the hall, then at his own tattered clothes. No wonder these dogs had stopped him. Feeling ashamed of his appearance, he thought, "Does this shop only sell wine to the rich and not to the poor?" He then thought, "Those who want something less valuable don't drink in this hall." Looking closer, he saw that outside the 2 balustrades were side rooms, each with long tables and benches. Xiubao, unassuming, smiled and said, "This is our humble feast." He walked to the first long table in the east side room, put down his silk robe, and sat down. Indeed, flowers lose their color in the wind and rain. People lose their spirit in poverty. The waiter brought the wine, but it was an old man instead of the others who had pushed him. It wasn't a smoked or roasted dish to accompany the meal, but rather a bowl of cold beef, a bowl of frozen fish, served in earthenware pots and porcelain bowls, and the wine wasn't even hot. The old man placed it on the table and left. Uncle Bao became furious. "Am I, Qin Xiubao, destined to eat such cold things? I could smash his property to dust and drag his house down with a flick of my wrist. It's a trivial matter. But tomorrow, when word gets home, my friends will say, 'Uncle Bao in Lezhu, only short a few taels of silver for food, not even a little crazy, went to the tavern twice and couldn't even eat.' All this for the sake of food, it'll become gossip. I'll just have to eat it then." He was hungry, and while he could forgive the petty man, he couldn't help feeling sad and dejected. He had only eaten a bowl of wine and some cold beef. How fitting. A clod of earth stirs up Chang'er. A desolate pavilion traps Han Guang. Hearing the commotion outside the shopkeeper called out, "Gentlemen, please come to my humble shop for a meal." 2 heroes dismounted at the shop entrance, followed by 4 or 5 servants pushing 2 small carts. They entered the shop, removing their outer garments and brushing off the dust. The owner led them through the second gate. The one who came first wore a scholar's cap and red robes, while the one who came later wore a black turban and purple robes. Xu Bao didn't recognize the one who came first, but the one who came later was his old friend, Wang Badeng. The two, riding fat horses and wearing light furs, they were full of vigor. Their long swords, sheathed, gleamed coldly. Talented, they refused to bow to the corrupt times. They expressed their heroic ambitions and chivalrous spirit. The host dragged chairs and swept tables in the hall, setting up a simple feast. "Gentlemen, please sit at this table," he said, instructing his servants. "Brew some fine tea, prepare the side dishes and the finely prepared delicacies, and open some aged wine for you." He then left. His servants brought 2 basins of hot water, and the 2 gentlemen washed their hands. Xu Bao in the east wing, fearing Badeng would see him, couldn't sit still. He picked up his silk robe and tried to leave, but couldn't. Entering wasn't a problem, but the railings surrounded the room, requiring a passageway to exit. The 2 men sat between them. Xu Bao couldn't very well step over the railings, so he had to turn his back and sit down again. If he had simply drunk his fill, no one would have noticed him. But because he was yawning and restless, Wang Badeng saw him and called to his attendant, "Turn around and look at the first table in the east wing. Who does this person look like?" The attendant turned around and said, "He looks like Lord Qin of Licheng." Indeed. His imposing presence makes him stand out among the crowd. His sharpness ultimately reveals itself. Upon hearing this, Xu Bao thought to himself, "Ah, he saw me," Badeng said. "Many people resemble Confucius and Yang Huo. Xu Bao is a dragon among men. Dragons naturally find water wherever they go. How could he have fallen into such a state of coldness?" Seeing that Badeng said it wasn't him, Xu Bao felt somewhat relieved. The attendant, however, was a sharp-eyed young man who understood this remark. He turned around and stared intently at Xu Bao. Startled, Xu Bao didn't raise his head, didn't move his chopsticks, and sat hunched over like a tiger crouching. The more the attendant looked, the more convinced he became. He kept saying, "He saw us here and didn't react at all. There's no way anyone in the world would drink like this." He then said, "It looks very much like him to me. Let me go down and see. If it's not him, then so be it." Xu Bao saw the attendant approaching, but by the time he realized who it was, he was embarrassed. He had no choice but to speak for himself, saying, "Brother Wang, it is I, Qin Qiang, who has fallen on hard times here." Badeng, seeing it was Xu Bao, hurriedly got up from his seat, quickly took off his purple robe, went down to the east wing, wrapped Xu Bao's strong body in it, pulled him into the hall, and embraced him, weeping. The host rushed to comfort him. Of the 3, one wept, and the other 2 did not. Wang Badeng, seeing Xu Bao in such a sorry state, felt sad and desolate. This man was a stranger, and they had no connection. Yet Xu Bao shouldn't be crying just because he was in dire straits. In short, even a close friend may have compassion. A true man doesn't shed tears in despair. Seeing Badeng's sorrow, Xu Bao comforted him with kind words. "Brother, there's no need to shed tears. Although I've fallen on hard times, it's nothing serious. I've been staying at my humble abode for a long time and have incurred some debts, which has led to my current predicament." He then asked who this friend was. Badeng replied, "This is my old sworn brother named Li Mi, courtesy named Xu Sui. He is the hereditary Duke of Pushan, and his family is from Chang'an. He and I once served together as left attendants of the palace guard, and we were very close. Because his surname was a prophecy, he was disliked by the emperor and resigned his post to travel with him. Because Yang Su was wielding power and the country was in decline, I also abdicated." Xu Bao then bowed to Li Xu Sui again. Badeng asked again, "Brother, did you meet Brother Shan here? Why didn't you go to Brother Shan's place?" Xu Bao replied, "I was in dire straits at the time and never thought of Brother Shan again. Today I had no choice but to go to Erxianzhuang to sell my horse to Brother Shan." Badeng asked, "You sold your yellow horse to Brother Shan. How much silver did you get?" Xu Bao replied, "Because the horse was overweight, they asked for 50 taels of silver, but I only got 30, so I sold it." Badeng was both surprised and amused, saying, "Brother Shan is a famous hero. Did you really want to make a deal with me to get a bargain? That's not very honest." Xingxin is here. If we go together now, we'll have to return the horse, and we'll have to make fun of him a bit. Xiubao said, Brother, I can't go with you. It would be a disgrace of me not to pay my respects to Xingxin in Lezhu. Just now, when he asked my name while I was selling the horse, I lied and said my surname was Wang. When he asked about Qin Xiubao from Licheng, I had to say we were good friends, and he gave me 2 bolts of silk from Lezhu and 3 taels of travel expenses. If I go with you two now, wouldn't that be a complete change of identity? When you two go to Erxianzhuang, please tell him in a roundabout way that the one who sold the horse was Qin Qiang. He said that he was offended because he hadn't paid his respects, and he was too embarrassed to see him, so he pretended to be Qin Qiang. His surname is Wang. His sincerity is deeply felt. I will visit Lezhu to express my gratitude another day. Xuan Sui said, We are here with Brother Shan and his 3 companions, and it would be good to linger. Brother, you seem inclined to stay longer than a day or 2 for your friends. We will invite Brother Shan to join us for a couple of days tomorrow before we say goodbye. Where is your esteemed residence, brother? Xiubao said. I have been away from home for a long time and miss my mother, and I also have official documents to return to. Tomorrow I will pack the travel expenses Brother Shan gave me, along with a couple of clothes, and then head home. You two don't need to come with Brother Shan to see me. Bo Dang and Xuan Sui said, We must inform you of your whereabouts. How could good brothers not know where to go? Uncle Bao said, It's at Wang Xiaor's shop, diagonally opposite the west end of the mansion. Bo Dang said, that Wang Xiaor is notoriously cold-hearted, a notorious Tiger Wang in the martial arts world. Has he ever wronged you, brother? Uncle Bao, moved by Liu's kindness, didn't want to speak ill of Wang Xiaor in front of his 2 unscrupulous friends, and said, My 2 virtuous brothers, although Wang Xiaor is cold-hearted, he does have some discernment. He and his wife have been very considerate to me. This is called. The petty man's actions are short-lived, but the gentleman's affections are long-lasting. Lady Liu was virtuous and capable, even managing to raise her husband well. The saying, a virtuous wife brings less trouble to her husband, is indeed true. The 3 drank until late into the evening, and Bo Dang even settled the bill for the wine that Xiubao had drunk earlier with the innkeeper. He said to Xiubao, We must part tonight, but we will definitely meet again tomorrow. My brother is so lonely here, we cannot bear to leave so soon. Tomorrow, when we see Brother Shan, we must find some travel expenses to give to my brother. Please do not leave immediately. Xiubao nodded and left the inn to say goodbye. Wang and Li bid farewell to Xiubao, mounted their horses, and went straight out the west gate to Erxianzhuang. Xiubao, however, wrapped his purple robe in a silken cloth and went straight back to Wang Xiaor's inn. Because his friend was reluctant to part with him, he arrived late. Wang Xiaor, seeing that he hadn't returned by noon, assumed he hadn't sold the horse and felt even more disgusted with him. Without waiting for Xiubao to arrive, he locked the door. When Xiubao arrived and knocked on the door, the waiter said coldly, It's good that you came home early, sir. We had many guests today, and we were afraid the door wouldn't be secure, so we locked it. The guests took the key inside. I'm afraid you won't have anywhere to sleep, so I wiped the wooden cabinet outside clean. You can make do with that. When we get up at dawn to cook and send the guests out, you can come in and sleep a little longer. Xiubao gritted his teeth, his eyes blazing with anger, and clenched his fist, his anger surging. I could push this door down with 2 fingers. If I beat him up, it would inevitably involve the authorities and I'd be detained here again. What's the big deal? Besides, it's just. Xingxin is a hospitable friend. When the 2 brothers, Wang and Li, mentioned selling the horse, they came to pay their respects to me before sunrise. Yet I instead went to court with my host. Is that the behavior of a hero? This petty man, using the excuse that I owe him a lot of money for meals, tried to cheat him and even damaged his shop. Just now, in front of Wang Bodeng, he praised him as a good person. How could he change his mind so quickly and say he's bad? I've become the inappropriate person. A small act of impatience can ruin a great plan. I've endured until now, and I've reached the top. Soon the matter will be resolved, and I'll see him rise again. This petty man, if I say I have money to repay him, will surely open his shop. Laughing at how petty people are so greedy. Who knows that a gentleman is tolerant of others? After hesitating for a moment, Shu Bao finally calmed down and called out, "Brother Zio, I've sold my horse, and I have the money to pay you back. I was worried about you sleeping outside. If anything goes wrong, it's not my fault." Hearing the lively conversation, Wang Zio assumed they had indeed sold the horse and were already peeking through the crack in the door. Even without the horse, at least they had the money, and he laughed happily. "Master Qin, I was just joking with you. Do you think I, the innkeeper, am ignorant of the proper way of things? In this frosty weather, how could I let you sleep in the open? My wife went to get the key to the guest room." Liu Shi, holding the key, hesitated to open the door without her husband's permission. Hearing Zio about to open it, she said, "The key is here." Zio opened the door and Shu Bao entered the shop, placing the purple silk fabric on the counter. Wang Zio said, "Was this included with the horse's price? It's fine if you don't want his goods." Shu Bao said, "This wasn't included with the horse's price. I have the money here." He took the silver from his sleeve. Upon seeing the silver, the waiter said, "Master Qin, be careful with your money. Don't mess with it tonight. Pack it up. Have some dinner first, and I'll see you off tomorrow." Shu Bao said, "I don't need the dinner, just give me the account book." The waiter handed over the account book and said, "Master Qin, you're honest. Just calculate it as you see fit." Shu Bao saw that he would be staying for a long time and that he hadn't eaten for several days with only tea and porridge. His horse was also starving and hadn't been fed, but Shu Bao was generous. He didn't bother with the 3 taels of silver from Prefect Kai and exchanged it for 17 taels of silver a day, paying it to the waiter. He said to Madame Liu, "I had to leave in haste and cannot thank you properly. I will repay you another day." Madame Liu replied, "Master Qin is here. He has been so lenient in his hospitality, yet he has not punished us. He is already showing great magnanimity. How could we possibly ask for thanks?" Shu Bao said. "Quickly bring me my reply." Madame Liu asked, "Where is Master Qin going now?" Shu Bao replied, "The city gates are not yet closed. I am eager to return home. I will hurry out of the east gate and then make further arrangements." The waiter lingered for a moment before handing the reply to Shu Bao. Shu Bao took his double maces and luggage, bid farewell, left the inn, and headed straight for the east gate. What will happen next? Let's find out in the next chapter.